Greetings, Com 181. This is Randy DeBerry, your instructor for your class, and I wanted to make a little video real quick going over basically some of the overarching issues that I saw in the personal narratives. These are all things that you probably need to work on or just be aware of before you do your next speech, the general informative. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. So again, these are some of the trends that I saw. So first off, let's talk about the actual video itself. Now, as far as the video recording, number one, you need to submit a video that doesn't have cuts or edits. It needs to be one continuous stream. And this wasn't a huge problem, but there were some of you that I could tell were kind of cutting. You did the intro and then stopped, and you did the body, and then you put them together using a software of some kind. Don't do that. I need one continuous recording with no cuts. And you may be asking, well, why do you need to do that? Well, the answer is, remember, we're trying to recreate the face-to-face class experience online. And in an online class, in a face-to-face class, when it would be your time to go up and actually give your speech, you couldn't parse it together. You would have the one take. So that's why, again, no cuts. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you get almost through with the speech and then totally mess up and you want to start over, you have to start all the way over and redo the entire thing. Okay, so no cuts, just one continuous recording. Also, remember that you're submitting a speech, not a video blog. All right, and again, you want to imagine, even though you're recording this on a camera, that you're giving it to an audience. And some of you seem to be thinking that, or at least it seemed like you thought you were recording more something like a video blog, because you would start something like this. Hi, y'all. This is Randy. I'm in your class, and I'm going to talk to you today about my personal narrative speech. And don't do that, all right? Start like you would give if you were giving the speech in a class to a classroom of people, all right? Do that, all right? It's not a video blog. Again, it's a speech, so treat it kind of with that formality, just like you would if you were giving it in class. Okay, so those are two things on the video recording just to be aware of for the next speech. Now, as far as the content of the speech itself, there were some general trends with some issues. And this doesn't apply to everybody. It might not apply to you personally, but these are some general things I saw. And sort of the 6 problem areas, if you will, dealt with the attention getter, with the body preview statement, with formalized connectives within the body of the speech, having a strong conclusion signal, the body recap statement, and then lastly, the slammer. So these were kind of the 6 areas where I saw some of the issues. There was a little bit of issues with the outlines, but not many. If you lost some points from the outlines, just remember the example outline that we gave in that module that you used as a template. Just use that as a template. Make yours look exactly like that, and you'll be fine, okay? But if you're thinking, well, do I need this? If it's on the outline, yeah, you need it. So make sure you have it on there. Okay, so now if you notice with these 6 things, they all are focusing on structure. And you may be asking, okay, so why is this structure so important? And it goes down to, and I've seen this even in some of your submissions and some of the times you've emailed me with a question. Remember, this is a speech, not a paper. Some of you still often refer to it as a paper. It's not. It is a speech. And it's important to keep that in mind, all right? Because there's a key difference between a speech and a paper, and that a paper, to get the content out of it, you read it, okay? But for a speech, to get the content out of it, you hear it. All you have is what you hear, okay? So what that means is there's lots of things in a paper that are designed to help the reader distinguish main points, okay? Things like paragraphs, indentations. Those are all visual cues to a reader in a paper that I'm starting a new point or this is a new section. You don't have those in a speech. Again, it's all auditory, and you don't say blah, 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 paragraph. You don't say that, all right? Which is why this structural stuff is so important, okay? Remember, it's a speech, not a paper. And because it's all auditory, you have to have the structural stuff so that you maintain the audience's attention and interest. These structural things make the speech easier for them to digest, to hear, to process, and as such significantly increase the likelihood that they're going to pay attention. And this is because of this one rule. This is Mr. DeBerry's first rule of public speaking. And this rule is very simply this: people are lazy. You may be thinking, what? Let me explain. You ever been in a situation where, like going to a class where you knew you were going to get some information that was important, and you knew it was going to be important, and you knew it was going to be on the test, but the person delivering that lecture was just horrible? They were like reading from you PowerPoints on the screen or something like that, word for word. In that situation, did you like go, okay, I got to focus and pay attention? Or did you be like, man, I'll read the PowerPoint later? You probably did number two, all right? And that's because listening is hard. It takes effort, particularly when you're not overly interested or exciting about the subject. And our natural tendency, because it is effort, because we are lazy, is to just check out. Okay, so if you don't have that good structural stuff, that is more effort the audience has to put into paying attention to you, and eventually they'll just stop. So that's why the structural stuff is so important. All right, so now when I go through these 6 things and kind of talk about what I saw and what you should do, I'm going to be using like a fake example speech. All right. So for this example speech that I'll use, let's say it's a personal narrative and I'm doing the 3 influential people structure. And the 3 influential people, the 3 main points would be my grandfather, my mother, and my wife. Okay, so that's the structure of the speech that I'm going to be using as examples throughout this little video. All right, so first off, the attention getter. Now, remember, the attention getter needs to be the very first thing out of your mouth when you start your speech. And this was an issue I saw several times. So let's talk about what not to do. Number one, the number one problems that people typically have: do not start by introducing yourself. Don't do it. I know it comes so naturally. You want to just get them and go, hi, my name's John DeBerry. Don't. First words out of your mouth every single time, without exception, are your attention getter. It has to be that way. Why? People are lazy. You have to start off right from the get-go at trying to get their attention and interest. If you don't do that, then you're going to run into all kinds of problems later on. So always start with the attention getter. And also, a common thing along with this is people will often start by introducing themselves and then just announcing their topic. Don't do that either. Most common mistake people make is they combine these together. They begin their speech by saying something like, hi, my name is John DeBerry, and today I want to talk to you about 3 people who have heavily influenced my life. Don't do that, okay? That is not a good way to start a speech. Now, that sentence, hi, my name is, and today I want to talk to you about blank, that's a perfectly fine sentence to have in an introduction as the topic reveal statement. If you remember, an introduction has 4 parts: the attention getter, the topic reveal, the credibility statement, and the body preview statement. Those 4 in that order, and the topic reveal is second. It goes after the attention getter. So don't start by doing this. You want to use an attention getter. You always start with that. Okay, so just to recap, what are those attention getting techniques that were covered in the course? Okay, the first one, you can start off with a quote. This is by far the simplest, one of the easiest ones, and if you're stuck, I say go with this one. All right, now when you do a quote, you just don't want to give the quote and move on. You want to connect it to what your topic is. You need to have a smooth flow from giving the quote to that topic reveal statement. So an example would be, if I started off again on that example speech, if I did this. Ben Franklin once said that the content of one's character will be judged by the company they keep. And in thinking about what Ben Franklin said, I think he's right. And if people looked at the company I keep and who's influenced me, I hope they would think I was honorable. Hi, my name is John DeBerry, and today I want to talk to you about 3 people who have influenced my life and who I am today, all of whom I believe are honorable people, just like Ben Franklin said. And you'd go to the rest of it. See how I gave the quote and then moved into the topic reveal statement? It was just, Ben Franklin said this. Hi, my name's this. There was a smooth flow there. So, quote, if you're ever stuck, go with a quote. It's an oldie, but a goodie, for lack of a better way of putting it. Next is hypothetical questions. Ask the audience a series of hypothetical questions. Things that you'll guess how they're going to ask. Now, typically when you ask hypothetical questions, you want to ask a minimum of 3. It's called the rule of 3. Don't ask me why it works. It deals with psychology, but it just does, okay? So you'd want to start off by asking 3 hypothetical questions. Like for this personal narrative, it would be, how many of you like where you are in your life? How many of you have had people who have been heavily influencers on your life? How many of you, when you think about those people, know you can never repay them for the gift they gave you? Well, I can say yes to all these questions as well. Hi, my name is John DeBerry, and today I want to talk to you. Okay, so you ask those 3 questions. That's a good one. You can also get the audience guessing. Okay, show a statistic. Not a statistic. Talk about attributes of your topic before you actually reveal what it is. Now, this probably wasn't the best with the personal narrative, but going into the general informative, it is. An example from a student I had previously was this. Today, I would like to talk to you about an art form that is literally hundreds of years old. It is an art form that has been admired around the world for not only its grace and beauty, but also for its ability to inflict violence. It is an art form that has not only been shown to help reduce stress and increase one's mental acuity, but has also been demonstrated to help one develop physical fitness. And lastly, it is an art form that if you were taught teaching in this country prior to the late 1960s, you could find yourself literally assassinated in your sleep. What art form am I talking about? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am talking about the art of karate. Hi, my name is Baba. When I was going through that scenario, how many of you were sitting there going, what's this guy talk about? Who's going to get assassinated over watercolor? That don't make no sense. So you were guessing, but at that point, you're engaged in what I'm saying and you're paying attention. You can also startle the audience. Start off with a really hard-hitting statistic or a really hard-hitting picture that shows something, and again, connect it. Or the next one, you can tell a story. Not a gigantic, long, 5-minute, narrative, but a story that brings the audience and introduces your topic. Okay, now I don't care which one of these 5 you use, but you always need to start with one of these 5. There is no exception. So do not start by introducing yourself and then announcing your topic. Why? Again, if you think about these 5, can I get the audience guessing if I've announced you your topic already? No. Can I startle you if I start by announcing my topic? Not really. A story's not going to have nearly as much impact if I just announce my topic before I tell the question. Same with quote hypothetical. The impact of these is all in that the audience doesn't know what you're talking about, and you kind of uncover it for them like a mystery. If I can't go, hi, my name's John. Today I want to talk to you about karate. I'd like to talk to you today about an art form. It doesn't work. That's why you always start with an attention getter. Then you can go, hi, my name is, and say your topic, but after the attention getter. I know I'm harping on this, but I saw this as a problem a lot. All right, so make sure you always start with that. Next issue I saw some issues with was the body preview statement. Now, the body preview statement is simply 1 sentence long, and it should be the very last sentence in the introduction. That's what it's there to do, okay? It should be the very last thing. The next words out of your mouth after you give the body preview statement should be the first main point. Now, why is this statement? It needs to be clear, it needs to be succinct, and it has to be there. And why? Because a good body preview statement clearly communicates to the audience, this is where the intro stops, and this is where the body starts. Okay, if that's not clear, if they blend together, then again, the audience starts wondering, are they in the speech yet? Or are they still talking? I don't know, where's my phone? And then you've lost them. Okay, so you need that to clearly indicate to the audience where the intro stops and the body starts. Again, in a paper, you would do this with a paragraph, but it's a speech, not a paper. They don't see a paragraph, okay? It's only what they hear. And it also just really effectively sets the audience up for the body content. Now, a proper body preview statement should include a couple things. You should be sure that you state the tags of each main point that you're going to go over in the body. A mistake a lot of people make is just giving the first one. Okay, you want to give the tags of each main point. Not the whole content, just the tag, the little mini title. And you also want to state the general topic area. See, so these should be in a body preview statement. And again, this is only one sentence long. And so to help you with this, I have a template that I'm going to show you. Now, for any of these templates that I show you throughout this video, so I always have some students that go, that's exactly what he said, word for word. Is he going to take off points for that? No. If I give you a template, use it. You don't have to, but these just kind of illustrate the point. So the template for the body preview statement would be this. So today in discussing, you'd state your topic. I will be focusing on, give the tag for main point 1, give the tag for main point 2, and give the tag for main point 3. Okay, so you see we stated our topic, we gave the tag for each main points. And then the very next sentence after that, I'm into my first main point. So there's the template. This is what it would look like if we actually were giving this for that example speech. So today in discussing 3 main people who have been major influences on my life, I'll be focusing on my grandfather, my mother, and my wife. And the very next sentence could be, the first person I'd like to talk about is my grandfather. Then I'm into that. So always end your introduction with a sentence like this that does these things. Now, so that takes us from the introduction. So then we go into the body. Now, by and large, the body content of your speeches were all pretty good. The issue was dealing very often with connectives. Now, the connective is, if you want to think of it this way, it's a little verbal bridge that helps tell the audience, I'm done with this main point and I'm moving on to this one. And again, this goes to that idea of helping the audience clearly distinguish where one point ends and the next one begins. Again, in a paper, you do this with a paragraph. You don't have paragraphs in a speech. So little verbal bridges that help the audience move and know you're shifting topics so they don't get confused. Now, a proper connective should be clear and formalized. Okay, it needs to really kind of have a formalized structure in what you say and how you say it, so it really serves the purpose of a connective. Okay, not just any sentence works. Okay, a lot of you had, I could tell you were trying to have connectives. You had connectives clearly labeled on your outlines. The problem is what you had as a connective wasn't really a connective. It was just a sentence that you thought was serving the point. If it doesn't do one of the techniques, it doesn't really do what a connective wants to do. Okay, and that's to help the audience separate those main points. So the point is, for the connective, you need to use the techniques we covered in the class. Okay, not just any sentence is going to work. You have to use the techniques. So what are these techniques? Well, I believe the textbook goes over 4, but I'm going to hit the most common and easiest 2. All right, and these are the signpost technique and the transition statement technique. Okay, these are the 2 simplest and easy to use. I don't care which one you use. You can even use them together. But you need to minimally pick one. All right, so let's talk about the signpost techniques first. Now, when you do the signpost technique, you state a verbal number at the start of each main point. Okay? First, I'd like to talk about how my grandfather influenced me. Second, I'd like to talk about how my mother influenced me. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? And that should be the first sentence of your main point. You would still separate it from the main point and label it as a connective on your outline. But when you are delivering it, this would very much be, this sentence with the signpost would be the very first sentence of the main point. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the signpost, never use next as a signpost. Why? Because next doesn't tell me anything. Saying that a lot of you may often say something like, another thing would be, another person that influenced me. Is this, another doesn't, is this first, second, third, what? It doesn't tell me. Again, clarity for the audience is everything. Why? Because people are lazy. You have to be clear. So don't use next. The other reason with next is once you start using next, it becomes next, 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 next. And then that just becomes a gigantic problem. So don't do that. So don't use next. Okay, so an example of this, again, is the first person who's been a major influence in my life is my grandfather. You'd go on, give all that information. The second person who's been a major influence in my life is my mom, and then you'd give all the content there. Then moving into the third one, you could go the third, or you could also say the last person, either one's fine, who's been a major influence in my life is my wife. And then you'd give all that. But so first, second, third, first, second, last, always start with those if you're going to use the signpost technique. The other technique you can use is the transition statement technique. Now, in the transition statement technique, it's just one sentence, okay? But what that one sentence does is it recaps the tag of the point you just finished, and then previews the tag of the point you're going to next. And where this should come in the speech is between the content of two main points, okay? So picture this as a visual. If this is the content of one main point and this is the content of the next one, I know this isn't awesome, but just go. Normally I would do this in a blackboard, but with COVID, we're home. Okay, if this is the two main points, right here, the little gap, like where my nose is right now, that would be where you'd want to put your, like right there, that would be where you would want to put your transition statement when you're done with the content of one before you move on to the other. And here again, I have a template for you. Again, one sentence, simple template. All right, so what is our template for these? It's this. Now that I have discussed, then you would say the tag of the main point you just covered. I will move on to, and then you'll say the tag of the next main point, the main point you're getting ready to do. And again, see how that clearly communicates with the audience? I'm done with here, and now I'm moving to here. So again, using this within our speech example, it would look like this. Now that I have discussed how my grandfather has been a major influence in my life, I will move on to how my mother has been a major influence in my life. Done. And then you do the same thing again between the mother and wife main point. Now I discuss how my mother has been a major influence. I'll move on to how my wife has been a major influence. Okay, so that's what a transition statement techniques are. So again, that's the signpost technique, the transition statement technique. You can use either one. The book lists two others. You can use those as well, but these are the two easiest. And they need to be formalized like this. They have to be formalized and clear in order to do what they need to do for the audience. So that brings us into some of the issues I saw with conclusions. First one being is the conclusion signal. You always, without exception, want to start your conclusion with a strong, clear conclusion signal. And this is simply a word or phrase that clearly communicates to the audience, I've reached the conclusion. Because you see, just like we have all these components that help tell the audience, I'm done with the intro, now I'm moving into the body preview statement. I'm done with one main point, now I'm moving into another. What are your connective techniques? The conclusion signal does this by helping the audience know, all right, I'm done with the body content, now I'm starting the conclusion. All right, it's there to identify where the conclusion starts clearly for the audience. And it just has to be a word or phrase. So what are some examples? Well, the two most common, probably the two easiest, number one is our old friend, in conclusion. So you go in conclusion, then you keep going on the sentence. Another one would be in closing. If you want to use these two, that's fine. Now, what if you said lastly? Well, that would be fine, providing you weren't using the signpost technique and you didn't say lastly for your third main point, because then you just said lastly twice, and and the audience is going to be like, what? Right? So lastly can work as long as you're not using lastly as one of your signposts. So in conclusion or in closing, both are great conclusion signals. And when you say these, you want to be sure you're not talking a line like this, doing your main point, and that's how my granddad was an influence on me, and then in conclusion, but these to stand out. You need to be talking, you get to the conclusion, and you kind of go, in conclusion, ta-da, and so there's a clear, it separates it, it brings it out clearly so the audience can hear it. Right, so that's a conclusion signal. And now the conclusion signal is always combined with a body recap statement. Now, a body recap statement kind of serves the same purpose as the body preview statement. You are previewing the main points, one, to help separate the intro from the body, but two, to kind of also set up the audience for the body content. The recap statement is kind of just a quick memory check with the audience, like, hey, this is what I talked about, remember? All right, so you're going to restate the topic and the tags of your main points. You want to be sure you do that in a body recap. Now, you typically combine this with the conclusion signal. So the conclusion signal and the body recap statement go together to make one sentence that serves what it's supposed to do. And it's always the very first sentence in the conclusion. Now, what some people did is they basically try to combine the body recap with the slammer. They would start out their speech and then they'd have like 3, 4, or 5 sentences where they would basically recapping the main points. That's not a slammer. That's still your body recap, okay? Remember, the point of a slammer is to drive home the point of the speech, the overall narrative, the message you're trying to get across. Body recap's the memory check with the audience, okay? So don't try to combine the body recap into your slammer. They're different points. You want to keep them separate. So again, here we go. I have a template for you that you can use in the speeches coming up. So it would be like this. State your conclusion signal, then say, today I have discussed, that should be with you, my topic by focusing on main point 1, main point 2, main point 3. So you state the conclusion signal. I have been discussed with you, or I have been discussing my, then you give your topic. By focusing on, then you'd give the tags. So again, let's fill this in with our example speech that we've been using. So it would be like this. In conclusion, today I have discussed with you 3 people who have been a major influence on my life, focusing on my grandfather, my mother, and my wife. See, it's very similar to the body preview. The difference is in the body preview, you're talking in future tense. I will be. And in the body recap, it's in past tense. I have. But you see how we start with that conclusion signal, marry that with the body recap, and a sentence like this, just this one sentence, does both of these parts effectively, and it should always be the first sentence of your conclusion. And then we follow the conclusion again with a slammer. Okay, I think the technical name for it in the course is reinforcing the central idea, but I call it a slammer. I think it just makes the point better. Now, a slammer is, again, the last part of the conclusion. So you start off with that conclusion signal body recap statement, and then you want to give your slammer. Now, again, it always comes after them. You don't do the slammer and then do the other part. It doesn't make sense. And usually, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but a good way to think about it is the slammer should be a minimum of 4 sentences. Now, sometimes you can get away with 3. If it's just 2, it's not developed enough. That's why I say 4 or more. And again, the conclusion signal body recap sentence does not count as one of those 4. And again, the point here is to really drive home the major focus of the speech. And a good technique you can use here is refer back to whatever attention-getting technique you used in the intro. So something like this with the example speech, you'd go, so in conclusion, today in discussing with you who has been a major influence on my life, I have focused on my grandfather, my mother, and my wife. Now, that's that. Now let's go into the slammer. I hope you can see that I wouldn't be the person that I am today without these three people. Each one of them has brought unique insight and motives into my life that have shaped who I am. And I'm pretty happy with the person that I am today, and it's because of these people. As a matter of fact, I think if I was to meet Ben Franklin, he would have to think about his quote and look at me and go, based on these 3 people, you have to be a person of honor. Thank you. See how I wrapped it back up? Right, so think about that with a slammer. And so again, those were the main issues that I saw, and some things to work on and just to be wary of going into the next speech. Because even though the next speech is a general informative, this structural stuff doesn't change. It doesn't change regardless of the speech at all. You always need to have these components. So as always, if you happen to have any questions, please email me, and I can help you any way I can. Normally I'd say come to my office hours, but it's summertime. And with COVID, we don't have the offices open. So please email with any questions. Best of luck in your next speeches, and I look forward to hearing them. Thanks a bunch.